Have you ever felt like your brain has about 50 tabs open all at once and you can't for the life of you find the one that's playing music? Well, that's kind of like a little peek into the world of ADHD. But it is so much more than just a short attention span or being a little hyper. Today, we're going to go way beyond the stereotypes to really dig into the hidden psychology, the fascinating brain science, and the very real challenges of living with this super common yet profoundly misunderstood condition.
You know, this is the question. It's the one that so many people with ADHD ask themselves over and over again. It's that voice in your head that fuels all the shame and the self-doubt. But here's the thing. The answer, based on decades of research, is crystal clear. It is not a moral failing. It is a fundamental biological difference in how the brain is wired. And we're about to see exactly what that means.
All right, so to make sure we're all on the same page, let's start with a solid foundation. What are we actually talking about when we say ADHD?
Okay, think of it like this. If a neurotypical brain is like a perfectly organized library where every book is in its place, an ADHD brain is more like a chaotic but totally brilliant inventor's workshop. All the information is there, it's just the filing system is a little creative. The key phrase here is neurodevelopmental condition. That means the brain's wiring is different right from the start. It's not about not trying hard enough, it's about the very structure of the brain and how it sends its signals.
And it's really important to know that ADHD isn't just one thing. It shows up in a few different ways. First, you've got the inattentive type. This is the one that's often missed, especially in girls and adults, because it's less disruptive on the outside. It's that feeling of your mind just constantly drifting away. Then there's the hyperactive impulsive type. This is the more classic visible version we all picture, with the restlessness and acting on impulse. And finally, you have the combined type, which, like the name says, is a mix of both, and it's actually the most common.
So, let's move beyond the textbook definitions now and get into one of the most powerful and, honestly, most misunderstood emotional parts of having ADHD. We're talking about the intense, crushing pain of rejection. Just take a second and look at this number. 99%. That is absolutely staggering. An estimated 99% of adults with ADHD feel this extreme sensitivity to being rejected. And this isn't just, feeling a little bummed out. This is a core, defining part of the emotional experience for so many people. And it actually has a name.
It's called rejection-sensitive dysphoria, or RSD for short. Now, while it's not an official diagnosis you'll find in the big medical books, it's a concept that clinicians who work with ADHD know inside and out. It describes this severe emotional pain that feels completely overwhelming, and often way out of proportion to what actually happened. A slightly critical tone from your boss can feel like you're about to be fired. A friend not texting back can feel like a total catastrophe.
So, what does this actually look like in real life? Well, it's obsessing over one small comment someone made for days. It's assuming that a neutral face from a coworker means they secretly hate you. It's feeling this sudden crushing drop in your self-worth from a tiny mistake. And to cope, people might become extreme people pleasers to avoid conflict, or they might just withdraw from social situations altogether, because the risk of feeling that pain is just too much to handle. Now, that really intense emotional world has a surprisingly strong link to something very practical, our wallets. The very same brain wiring that makes rejection feel so painful also plays a huge role in our financial decisions.
This brings us to a really cool concept called delayed discounting, or some people call it present bias. It's a huge driver of impulsivity in ADHD. Imagine your brain has two buttons, a now button and a later button. For the ADHD brain, that now button is just bigger, shinier, and way more tempting. The future just feels less real, It's less motivating than the immediate pull of what's right in front of you. And this slide illustrates that internal battle perfectly. Logically, we all know that $115 in a month is the better deal. But to a brain that's heavily influenced by present bias, getting that $100 right now feels so much better, so much more valuable. That immediate gratification can totally override the more logical long-term choice. And again, this isn't about being smart or not. It's a powerful cognitive bias hard at work.
So what's the real-world fallout from this? Well, it's things like late fees on bills because the task of paying it right now felt too boring or overwhelming. It's racking up credit card debt because the impulse buy felt too good to resist. It can even mean a history of bouncing between jobs because the long-term career goal felt way too abstract compared to the day-to-day frustrations of the current gig.
So, we've covered the what, the symptoms, the emotional side, the financial impact. Now let's get to the why. What is actually going on inside the brain that's causing all of this?
Let's look under the hood.
Okay, first up, let's talk about your brain's CEO. These are your executive functions. This CEO is supposed to be in charge of planning, prioritizing, and making sure everything gets done. Now, in the ADHD brain, the CEO is like this creative genius full of amazing ideas, but they're also super easily distracted and just terrible with deadlines and paperwork. This whole system, which is run by the prefrontal cortex, just manages information differently.
Next up is the motivation engine, and it runs on a chemical called dopamine. The ADHD brain is often understood to have a different kind of dopamine system. This changes how it processes rewards and motivation. So if a task isn't immediately interesting or rewarding, like, say, doing your taxes, it can feel physically difficult to start because your brain just isn't getting that chemical kick that says, hey, this is worth doing.
And finally, there's the daydreaming brain, which scientists call the default mode network. This part of your brain lights up when your mind is just wandering. In most brains, it quiets down when it's time to focus on something. But in the ADHD brain, this network can stay loud and active, basically creating interference. It's like trying to listen to your favorite song, but someone left another radio on, playing static right next to you.
Okay, so understanding all that brain science is so key because it moves us from a place of blame to a place of strategy. So knowing all this about how the brain is different, how can someone with ADHD not just cope with it, but actually thrive? Well, it really is all about building a personalized toolkit. This is not a one-size-fits-all thing. For some people, therapy like CBT can be a total game changer for managing all those negative thoughts. For others, an ADHD coach might provide that external accountability they need to build new habits. For many, medication is an absolutely crucial piece of the puzzle that helps regulate brain chemistry, which then makes all the other strategies work even better. And really, none of it works as well without that solid foundation of good sleep, exercise, and nutrition. But we're not quite done. There is one last, crucial piece of this whole puzzle that we have to put into place, and that is the fact that ADHD almost never shows up to the party alone.
Get this. Research shows that a huge majority, we're talking somewhere between 60 and 100% of kids with ADHD also have at least one other condition going on at the same time. This is called comorbidity, and it is absolutely critical for understanding the full picture of what a person is dealing with.
This chart here really drives that point home. See that relatively small slice? That's the percentage of people who only have ADHD. It very, very often travels with friends like anxiety, depression, and learning disorders. And this overlap can make getting a diagnosis tricky and treatment more complex, because you're not just managing one set of symptoms, but the complicated dance between two or more conditions. And that brings us right back to what is, I think, the most important takeaway of all. This quote here from the London Psychologist Clinic just says it perfectly. When we finally see ADHD for what it really is, a neurological condition, not a character flaw, we can stop blaming people and start building systems of actual effective support.
So I want to leave you with this final thought to chew on. What if we just reframed this whole conversation? What if it's not about a deficit at all, but just a different operating system? You know, an OS that might struggle with spreadsheets, but it excels at creative, out-of-the-box problem solving. A brain that might be distractible, but is also deeply curious and incredibly passionate.
Ultimately, if anything we talked about today really resonated with you, whether it's for yourself or for someone you care about, the first step is always understanding. Practice compassion with yourself and with others. The challenges are absolutely real, but so are the strengths. And reaching out to a qualified professional can be a powerful, life-changing first step toward building that toolkit for thriving.